Hi, thanks for tuning in today. My name is Nick Lockard, and today I'm going to show you how easy it is to use a program by the name of Metaspoit to compromise a remote computer using an exploit targeting the SMB service on a Windows computer. So to get started, the very first thing you need to do in a terminal window, you're going to open up the MS console, and that command is just MSF console and enter. It'll take it a few seconds for it to load, and once it loads, from there you'll be able to configure the attack. So at this point, it's loaded, and the next command we're going to give it is called use exploit, and you can tab through this. This will help fill it out quicker and make sure you're typing it in exactly the way it needs to match. So again, attacking a vulnerability on the SMB service. And the specific vulnerability we're going to be using today is this one right here. So SMB is notorious for being vulnerable. And so this particular vulnerability allows for remote code execution. So no activity is required on the victim side. They don't have to click on anything. They just have to have their computer on and unpatched and vulnerable. So once we've selected the exploit we're going to use, the next command we're going to do is show options, because we have to configure it. You'll notice we have a couple of settings that we can adjust. The R host and R port. The R stands for remote. Think of that as the target or the victim. The setting here is blank, and so this is just going to be the IP address. And to change that is just set our host and then the IP address that we're going to target. And then you press enter. And then let's double check to validate that setting took, and it did. In this case, it automatically filled in the the service port that we're going to be targeting, which is 445. That is associated with the SMB protocol. And then the SMB pipe defaults to browser. However, you can see we do have the options to change that if we want. Again, I'm going to leave that as is. The specific target we're going to leave on ID 0, and that basically is going to automatically do the targeting. If we had done a really good job of intelligence gathering, we can explicitly target, like Windows XP or Server 2003 or 8 or whatever the case is. And then the last part that we have to set up is the payload. You can think of the payload as the actual weapon. And so this is what's actually going to be sent to the computer and executed. So the payload we're going to be using today is just a reverse shell over TCP. There are multiple payloads. The most common one in Metasploit is referred to as the interpreter. The interpreter is basically like a command prompt on steroids. It gives you a ton of options. You can even launch command prompts basically from within interpreter. And so I'm going to just use the basic reverse shell, which is going to send me like a DOS prompt back here to my terminal to interact with as if I was sitting directly in front of that computer. So now that we've set the payload, we have to see more options to change. And so that's show options again. And now you can see we've got a whole new section of things that we can adjust. Similar to the R host and R port, we've got an L host and L port. L is local. This is your particular your attacking system. So we are basically telling the weapon, the payload, how to come back and what port to connect back with this command prompt once we have it. And so this is where you'll type in your IP address, and that just sets L host, and then the IP address that is your system. If you don't know how to check your IP address from another terminal window, in Linux here, it's ifconfig, and it's right here. Now, in this case, I've got a bunch of interfaces here, so I know that interface is the one that we need to be connecting back to. So let's apply that, show options again. And the last thing that I would recommend in this case is changing the local port. The default's 4444. That port is notorious for being malicious, and so certain filtering systems, antivirus and whatnot, deep packet inspection can block that at times. So let's change that to a known good port, and 443 is known for secure web browsing. So let's do show options one last time, and everything looks good. You also have some other options if you wanted to change the exit function from thread to process, or you don't want an exit function. This really helps stabilize the system. Sometimes when you go to close the shell, it can lock the system up at times, and you may have to restart. So it's best to always use the exit function when possible. And then to actually fire this, the command is just exploit. And then once the exploit fires, you can see if it works successfully, you should get a familiar looking command prompt from Windows. You can basically follow the details of the attack process, where it's identified the operating system. It's then attempted to trigger the known vulnerability, and this shows that the vulnerability was successfully exploited because it opened up a shell. And so now we basically have full access to this remote system. From here, normal Windows commands that worked in this case Windows 2000 we can use. So if we were to do like who am I, we can now see that we have we're NT authority system level privileges. That's basically the highest level authentication possible. This is basically a step above administrator. So at this point, I could do whatever I want. I can make a new user. I could add it to the administrator group. I could add files and folders. I can delete files and folders, exfiltrate anything that I want on the system. I can pivot from the system and attack other systems, and it would look like it's coming from this. I can keylog. I can capture the screens. I can do all kinds of stuff. But this was just kind of basic to show you what's possible, how easy it is to compromise a system. And so another kind of example of just other commands is moving around the file structure. And let's see here, program files, I believe is the command. Yep. So that just kind of shows you how easy it is. And then if you're wanting to exit, a Control-C will allow you to abort your session, and then it puts you right back into Metaspoit. So I hope you enjoyed watching the video today. Feel free to leave comments if you have any questions or if you'd like to see anything else. Thank you for watching.